Back at the Quality Learning Center in Minneapolis, it was a case of deja vu. Hi, this is Eric Rasmussen with KSTP Channel 5. We're still waiting for a response to our calls and emails looking for an explanation about what 5 Investigates found Wednesday morning. A search of the state's online system reveals Quality Learning Center now closed as of January 6th. A 180-degree turn after our cameras recorded a parade of parents and children into the business last week. The owners used that to refute a viral YouTube video claiming to expose empty daycares, collecting millions of taxpayer dollars.
Shout out to nickshirley, the real boots on the ground. Shout out to nickshirley for going out there and exposing these criminals. If it wasn't for nickshirley, we wouldn't have gotten this far into the waste, fraud, and abuse that's been committed by these Somalis over there in Minnesota. So shout out to nickshirley. I'm used to seeing nickshirley going to certain places in like heavy gang-controlled communities, and he's been doing his thing. And just to see him get to this level of journalism where, you know, he's pretty much exposing, you know, criminals like these. Look, you got to give this man his credit. What I want to find out is how did he actually figure out which daycare center to go to, and what type of work got put into that to actually discovering this particular layering center, not learning center, as you could see at the top of the sign.
Someone came to our building outside of operating hours.
So why is the daycare suddenly closed again? The Department of Children, Youth, and Families would only tell 5 Investigates that Quality Learning Center requested closure of their license on Tuesday. No answer from the daycare's owner when property records led us to this house in Shoreview looking for answers. What do you make of the fact that right after that big scene last week that they're closed again?
Well, to me, that's, where there's smoke, there's fire. Perhaps they're trying to avoid something.
State Rep Nolan West says questions about Quality Learning Center prompted him to send a letter to the head of DCYF demanding more transparency and accountability when it comes to which licensed daycare providers in Minnesota are actually open. A question KSTP has been asking for a long time since reporter Jay Coles found empty daycares receiving taxpayer funding a year ago. What do you think may actually come out of your letter, our reporting, all this attention?
Well, the idea is we need this to be taken seriously because we need bipartisan cooperation to pass any law in Minnesota. And clearly we are in need of more anti-fraud measures.
As we reported last week, DCYF says that Daycare Quality Learning Center received $1.9 million in taxpayer funding in just the last fiscal year. Now, the agency declined our request for another interview today, but I can tell you it said the operators of Quality Learning Center must now reapply for another license if they ever want to reopen again.
And they probably will. They probably will. This is what they usually do. They shut down the old, reopen the new, open it up under a different LLC. But what happens is they will be under the microscope moving forward. Let's take a look at this video.
Minnesota is home to the largest Somali population in the United States. You know, there's over 100,000 Somalis here. And as you know, when you go into this community, what you realize is that the vast majority of them obviously are appalled at what's happening and wish that the spotlight was not on their community. At the same time, most of the fraudsters who have been caught so far are of East African or Somali descent. And so, they're immigrants that are coming here. They don't know our system too well. And many of them, they come from a culture where fraud is very common. And unfortunately, they've encountered state government here where the guardrails have really not been strong enough.
Republicans have been criticizing the Democratic Governor Tim Walz over this, saying he basically ignored this. His office insists he's been working for years to crack down on fraud. So what have you learned about how state officials have tried to address this and what more needs to be done?
Tim Walz has to be the most frail governor I've ever seen. He's soft, he's made of paper. Matter of fact, he's made a sponge. And him recently announcing that he won't be running for governor in the next election, it goes to show that America made the right decision when it comes to who America voted for in 2025, which is Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. versus Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you know, America made the right decision, because I wouldn't have wanted this SpongeBob, to be sitting in the White House saying he's the vice president of the most powerful country in the world. We would have been in trouble. Him announcing that he will not run for the governor's race again. Look, that was the best news that came out a few days ago. And this is exactly what happens when real fire hits your tail. Look, you fold. Shout out to Donald Trump. This is telling me how much of a great decision the American people made when they voted in Donald Trump. He is tough as iron. Look, he doesn't hide by threats, nor does he fold under pressure. Donald Trump was the best decision the American people made. Now, as far as the daycare center, they were licensed back in October 2017. And in the 2025 fiscal year, they have received over $1.9 million from CCAP in Minnesota, which is the Child Care Assistance Program. Now, as far as federal tax money, they have received $7.9 million since 2019. We're talking about over $1 million a year for 6 years. And by the way, that $1.9 million that they received in the 2025 fiscal year, that's their minimum annual inflow from public child care subsidies. So as of today, Quality Learning Center is officially closed. Grand opening, grand closing. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. You could have been anywhere else, but you're here. Thank you for being here.